A phrase you really don't want to hear from a judge is, "I can't hear you, Mr. Robertshaw." Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm mumbling or the judge is deaf, although sometimes it does. But what that means is you are not dressed appropriately. And what do we mean by that? There are all sorts of like little rules about court dress. You know, it's got to be predominantly dark. You can't have any hair showing at the front of your wig. There's also a no white bellies rule, as they call it. So for gentlemen, you should either wear a waistcoat or a buttoned-up, double-breasted suit. I'm old enough to remember the practice direction going out confirming that women could wear trousers in court. But there were judges who just, wouldn't listen to people. And that was always the thing. I can't hear you means there's something wrong with the manner of your presentation. So we have to get court dress. And one place you can get court dress is Ivy and Normanton. This is not a sponsored link or anything. I just happen to like them because apart from anything else, they specialise in court gear for women and non-binary people, but they're also the agents for my friend's vegan hemp wig supply. But they posed a very interesting question. They said, what is it to be a good barrister? And I'm not sure the answer is as simple as people might think. I mean, the obvious answer is somebody who wins cases. I'm not sure that is all of it, though. That can be part of it. But as a barrister, we've almost got three clients, really. We have what we call the lay and professional clients. The lay client is, the client. The professional client is the solicitor. And normally we get instructed through solicitors, although I've explained about direct access. But one client is the judge. Our first duty is to the court, which in a sense, essentially means to the judge. I have a little bit of spiel. I always tell the new barristers. As advocates, especially in an adversarial system, we tend to see cases as battles to be won. But for judges, cases are problems to be solved. So help the judge solve the problem. And what do I mean by that? Well, make their life easy. Judges are very busy people these days. Explain who you are, what you want, why you should get it. Explain to the judge what the key issues are. Identify the relevant parts of law. Identify which bits of the evidence you say are important. All that sort of thing. I mean, I think you should always approach a case almost objectively, where you come in almost as like amicus curiae. I'm not on any side here. I'm just, here's what the issues are. Here's what the obvious conclusion is. And obviously you want the obvious conclusion to be you win. And if you've done that exercise and actually being objective, you're not sure you're going to win, that's sometimes a time to have words with your clients. But obviously assisting a judge, it doesn't hurt your case. I mean, judges will obviously apply the law and the facts properly, and they shouldn't be influenced by the behaviour of the advocates. But it certainly doesn't hurt to get the judge on side. What about your professional client, the solicitor? Well, what solicitors usually want is to be kept fully informed and for you to be reasonably contactable. So, communicate with the solicitor. Tell them, I've received the instructions. This is great. I'm getting on with them. I'll get back to you by such and such dates. If you need to ask questions, ask them clearly and succinctly. But make the solicitor's job as easy as possible. And also with the contactable thing, I mean, obviously we all have busy professional and personal lives, but you don't want solicitors to be chasing you. You can be the best lawyer in the world. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the best lawyer in the world, but years ago I did a case for a solicitor where they said, how are you getting on with such and such case? It's like, oh yeah, I went to a hearing, got it struck out. And they were like, well, that's great, but would you mind telling the client that? I said, oh yeah. But when we come on to the client, possibly, obviously the most important person because they're paying you. But is winning the case all it's about? I mean, people get embroiled in litigation for all sorts of reasons. I mean, the question I always ask people is, what do you want from this? And sometimes they're not sure. But a lot of the time, it's vindication rather than anything practical. And I can tell you now, I've done cases where I have lost cases, but we've gone down fighting. And the client's been really, really happy. Whereas I've won cases, and afterwards the client's saying, yeah, but you didn't say this and you didn't put that, and I wanted you to question this. And it's like, well, what exactly did you want? And it wasn't necessarily a victory. It was a victory on their terms, or even a case on their terms. And sometimes you have to have a very hard word with your clients about this. I mean, there's the old cliche, solicitors take your money, barristers make you cry. But you have to be as objective as possible with them. There's a really good film, Denial, about the Irving and Lipstadt case. I actually got to see some of that, the real case, live, and it was a very interesting experience. But one of the issues there was Deborah Lipstadt wanted to have her say in court, and her barrister had to sit down and say, that might lose us the case, you giving evidence, because we can win this case without you, and we'll probably have more chance of winning this case without you. And sometimes that's a very difficult conversation to have with your clients, but it is something that does crop up. I mean, the other thing is also communicate with your client. I mean, in the olden days, especially where solicitors were involved, there was a little element of, well, the solicitor will explain everything to you, we'll just get on with it. But, people are outside their comfort zone or their zone of competence. I mean, you can get people who are absolute experts and well respected in their own field. I get a lot of doctors, for instance, but you stick them in a courtroom setting and they're the same as I would be in a hospital. It's like, what's that beep? What's that noise? Why are you doing that? You don't know. Or when you're on an aeroplane, you hear all the strange noises. Once those are explained to you, it's quite comforting. If a pilot sits down and says, oh, that's just the engine spooling down and this is why we do it. Oh, great. Do that for your client. Explain the procedure, explain who people are, explain what we're doing. Now, don't get me wrong, some clients will be just, look, you just get on with it, I trust you, you do what's best. But other clients, they need their hands holding a little bit. Explain to them, explain to their family members. Because, of course, when you're in court, part of the audience is, you've got their family and friends. So you need to keep that in mind. And it's always this tricky balance. I mean, because ultimately, yes, you want to win the case. That is possibly your priority goal. But you need to do it on the client's terms. I mean, effectively, they are paying you a lot of money, or even if it's on legal aid, you owe them a duty to act for them in their best interest. You are advocating for them. You are saying what they would wish to say if they knew all the sort of procedural rules. I mean, you can't lend yourself to an abusive process, but you have to run the case as they want to. And sometimes you'll have hard words with them and say, look, this is not the best strategy, or, there are better approaches here. And, I often tell people who want to sue, especially in defamation, look, you're very riled up now, but my advice is never get embroiled in litigation if you can afford it, and if you can avoid it. And sometimes that's the best advice you can give to somebody, is to be brutally realistic with them. Because while it's not about the money, it's the principle now, in 2 years' time, when there's a cost order against them and they're going to lose their house, and they've been wrapped up in this litigation, day in, day out, they might have a very, very different view. So yeah, in summary, what makes a good barrister? Well, it depends on the audience, but fundamentally, I think it's adapting to your client and to the other people involved. Like I say, be somebody that the solicitor wants to instruct because you make their life easy. Be somebody a judge looks forward to having in court because you make their life easy. And when it comes to the client, be somebody who is approachable, can explain things, and will listen to their clients. They're not going to patronise them, they're not going to dismiss them. Take on board all their concerns. I mean, sometimes in this job you are, to an extent, almost a therapist. But bear that in mind. We meet people at the worst times in their life, especially if you're doing sort of criminal or family law, but even commercial stuff, it's very stressful. So always bear that in mind. So yeah, in summary, what's a good barrister? It's somebody who keeps their clients happy, but that's not always about winning the cases. Anyway, hope you found that vaguely useful. And I'll tag on a little bit at the end saying please like and subscribe and share and things, just in case we decide to stick this on YouTube as well. Although, as I always say, you don't have to. I mean, I just enjoy talking, and that's why I welcomed this opportunity. So there you go.